see. PMS, atomization of small nuclear compounds, the nebulization, creating an inductively coupled plasma, testing atomized elemental impurities, really, most predominantly antimony inside of substances. Watch out, guys, watch out, because hard metal is the first key indicator of hard knock lives. Watch out, guys, because if you know, then you know. And if you know, then you know. You know? Anyway, let's get it going. My name is Eric Pullman, and we're going to do a little... Oh, no, I didn't mean to share that tab, or did I? We are about to create this book, Enhancing Collaboration and Efficiency in South Africa's Integrated Energy System, concept for bridging the gap between independent system operator and independent power producer. As you can see, I have the opening credits, the closing credits, the abstract keywords, and introduction, but we have only made it this far into the production. I've separated it into a multitude of different tracks the other day. So we've got chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 to go. And this is about an hour and 10 minutes of content. It'll probably distill down until about 15 minutes or so, maybe a little bit less than that. We'll see. But we're working away on this. So this is going to be a book that's going to be completed soon. I stayed up pretty late making sure this was in a good state to where we can edit this down. If not tonight, then some other day here soon. We're going to open up another one, though. We're going to open up philosophical methods. Close that, move it over. And we were just past the first 15 minutes on this. So we got the first 15 minutes, and it looks like I was recording part 2, chapter 1. Let's figure out exactly where I was. All right, we were on part 2, chapter 1, and the last thing I said was search and constant research. So let's look that up. Where was I? Oh, you know what? This is like way too over, actually. This is like way too over to the right. I thought this would help out with sound dampening, but actually, I don't think it puts it in the right place. So. In New York, concrete jungle where dreams are made of. All right, I have a plan. Okay. 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 Okay, I was on absolute knowledge, and this goes down to search and research. Probably would be helpful if I did a little find action, but let's just hear a few things. There we go. Okay, so I know where it should be. Oh, here we go. Yep. So we ended at the end of page 13. Um, so let's go ahead and turn off the mastering on that. Keep that muted. I'm gonna move this up. And what else? Guess I'll take my shirt off. Guess I'll take this old thing off. Ooh. My bad. Oof. Okay. There we go. I have a plan now. I always love like the extremely fake toll fines that you get where they're like, pay this fine or suffer the consequences. And I'm like, you'll never take me alive. Try your best, but you'll never try hard enough. I don't think that I can report this on here, but I will on my phone. All right. Okay. And what else? And also with you. Okay. Let's go ahead and call myself. And on here, I'll go to myself and join. Muted. Cool. And then here we go. And then I'll add the script as Viewing Eric's screen. Okay. There we go. And this is it. All right. An example of a dialogue between. Okay, let's see. Internal? Check. No. All right. Let's see how this compares at least. Okay. I think that works. An example of a dialogue between Socrates and Thrasymachus. Thrasymachus? What? Who's that? What? Thrasymachus. Pronunciation. Thrasymachus. 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 All right. Okay. I'm just going to. An example of a dialogue between Socrates and Thrasymachus. Socrates, do you really think that justice is simply the benefit of the strongest, Thrasymachus? Do you really think that justice is simply the benefit of the strongest, Thrasymachus? Do you really think that justice is simply the benefit of the strongest, Thrasymachus? Thrasymachus. Of course it is so, Socrates. Laws are made by rulers for their own benefit. Laws are made by rulers for their own benefit, and therefore justice consists in obeying those laws. Socrates. But may not rulers err in what is to their advantage? And if they make laws that do not benefit them, would justice then consist in following those erroneous laws? Would justice then consist in following those erroneous laws? Thrasymachus. You're cunning, Socrates. But even if rules err, you're cunning, Socrates. But even if rules err, they remain the strongest, and therefore justice consists in obeying them. And therefore justice consists in obeying them. Hegel raised the dialectical method to an entirely new level, bringing it to a high degree of abstraction and systemization. In his work, Phenomenology of Spirit, he showed how the dialectical process underlines the development not only not only of individual consciousness, but also of history, nature, and reality as a whole. For Hegel, dialectics is not just a method of reasoning, as in Socrates or Plato. It is the way through which all being develops. The essence of Hegelian dialectics, the essence of Hegelian dialectics is that every concept or phenomenon contains contradictions. These contradictions are inevitable. Because nothing exists in a static state. Everything is in motion and change. But it is through the realization of these contradictions. And their resolution that the transition to a new level, to a new higher form of existence or thinking takes place. Thus, a simple idea, when confronted with its opposite, is transformed into a more complex and perfect understanding. For Hegel, this process of dialectical development applies to everything. Human consciousness develops through conflict and resolution of contradictions. Historical events and ideas also move. For Hegel, this process of dialectical development applies to everything. Human consciousness develops through conflict and resolution of contradictions. Historical events and ideas also move along this path, and even nature itself is subject to this law. In every phenomenon, its negation. In every phenomenon, its negation is hidden, but this negation does not destroy it. On the contrary, it leads to a deeper understanding. Of its essence. An example from The Phenomenology of Spirit, section Master and Slave. Hegel describes in detail the dialectical process through which consciousness passes. Exploring its development at various stages. One of the key moments of this process is the interaction between master and slave, which symbolizes an important stage on the way to the formation of self-consciousness. Hegel. Self-consciousness achieves its satisfaction only in another self-consciousness. This achievement is a process in which two self-consciousnesses strive in which two self-consciousnesses strive to recognize each other. In this struggle, one self-consciousness yields, becomes a slave, becomes a slave, and the other becomes a master. The master asserts its authority over the slave, but through this recognition, he discovers that his own freedom and independence depend on the recognition by the slave, who, being in a subordinate position, cannot grant true recognition. The master is dependent on the slave's recognition. This shows his inner contradiction. He dominates, but his dominance is not complete because he is dependent on the slave. On the other hand, the slave, while in subjugation, goes through a process of labor and transformation of nature. This leads to the development of his consciousness and understanding of his own independence. Eventually, through labor and self-knowledge, the slave achieves a higher form of self-awareness than the master. This passage demonstrates how the contradiction between master and slave, power and subordination, is resolved in the dialectical process into a new, higher form of self-consciousness. The master loses his absoluteness, while the slave, on the contrary, through labor and awareness of his essence, develops and acquires true self-consciousness. Hegel uses this concept to show that the development of consciousness, like the development of history and nature, occurs through dialectical movement, the process of resolving contradictions and moving to higher levels of understanding and being. I'm going to save that and get a drink. Woo! We're at 3:39. All right, let's see what my plan is, because we're at Karl Marx here. Let's scroll down. We could honestly make it to chapter 2. I think chapter 2's got quite a bit here. Yeah, we could definitely make it to that. I'll probably make it to chapter 2 and then start some laundry and then move on to editing, because I don't know, I'm sort of feeling it in the voice already, and I'm already kind of tired from the process. So I think as long as we make some sort of movement on philosophical methods and the libertarian book, Legal Foundations of a Free Society, we've made pretty good progress today. So I'm pretty happy if we get at least chapter 1 done. Yo, what's up, Misha? Good to see you, Misha. Are you working on the same project? I'm working on a slightly different project. It's sort of on the same vein, but it's a different book, sort of in the same genre. So, this is a different project and I feel like I'm going to divide my time up between the project we were working on yesterday and this project right here. And I think what I'm going to do, I think the best thing to do, and I'm just thinking about it now, is spend most of my time and effort on the project that we were just working on yesterday and spend the residual amount of time on this process right here. So sort of like the extra stuff goes into this project and then like the main focus is the other. And I think that'll give me like a good momentum towards where we need to be with the project status. So almost. What's up though? It's good to see you. How are you doing? I'm doing pretty well. But I didn't get much sleep last night, and my voice didn't completely recover. So I'm probably only gonna be on for a short amount of time. Where I'm doing this up until chapter 2. So I'm just gonna finalize chapter 1, and then we'll work on chapter 2 sometime this week. I think that'll be the best way to go about it. All right. I think my voice is where it's got to be. Where it's got to be for this. I don't know. I'm going to be somewhere tonight at 7 to 10. So, I'm probably going to leave here by like 6. So, I'm going to start getting ready by like 5, and that's in about an hour. So, I'm trying to allocate my time appropriately. Karl Marx. Karl Marx. Karl Marx applied Hegel's dialectical method to the analysis of society and the economy, creating his own concept, dialectical materialism. Dialectical materialism. In Capital, Marx uses this method to explore the contradictions of the capitalist system, primarily the conflict between labor and capital. He shows how these contradictions become the driving force of social change. An example from the first book of Capital, chapter 23, the universal right of capital accumulation, vividly describe. Ooh, it's almost 4 there. Ooh, yeah, it's almost. 1:44 a.m. Wow, I love that. Well, hey, we're up late tonight. We're working away, right? Um, an example from the first book of Capital, chapter 23, the universal right of capital accumulation, vividly demonstrates the logic of dialectics in Karl Marx's analysis. Karl Marx writes, other things being equal, as capitalist production grows, capital accumulation also develops. capital accumulation also develops. But the accumulation of capital means no. But the accumulation of capital means nothing more than the conversion of surplus value into capital. But the accumulation of capital means nothing more than the conversion of surplus value into capital. Thus, capital accumulates its power over labor, increasing the exploitation of the working class. Increasing the exploitation of the working class. This, however, leads to an increase. This, however, leads to an increase in the size of the working class. This, however, leads to an increase in the size of the working class and intensification of its exploitation. Here, Karl Marx emphasizes that as capital increases, so does the exploitation of workers. Capitalists seeking to increase profits increase their control over labor. However, this process also leads to increasing contradictions. The greater the exploitation, the greater the workers' awareness of their situation, and the greater their desire for change. Karl Marx continues, thus, the accumulation of capital on the one hand increases the wealth of the capitalists, but on the other hand deepens the poverty, slavery, dependency, degradation, and exploitation of the working class. This inevitably leads to the situation that sooner or later a situation will arise where the working class, realizing its strength, will rise up against the capitalists to change the existing system. These lines demonstrate how Karl Marx uses the dialectical method to analyze capitalism. The contradiction between capital and labor does not just exist, it drives the system itself. The more capitalists accumulate, the more social inequality deepens. And class contradictions sharpen. Marx saw this process as the inevitable dialectic of the destruction of capitalism. Since the increasing tension between labor and capital, in his view, was bound to lead either to reform or revolution. Karl Marx sees the capitalist system as one that bears the seeds of its own destruction. The more capital seeks to accumulate the more capital seeks to accumulate profits by worsening labor conditions. By worsening labor conditions, the more social contradictions grow. Ultimately, these contradictions lead to the accumulation of social tensions and, as a consequence, to social explosion. To social explosion. This is a good place to pause for a second, take a drink, take a breath. We're getting into Goethe's Faust. I'm a fan of Goethe's Faust. I like that one. It's a good one. Johann Wolfgang. All right. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. An example of the use an example of the use of the dialectical method in a literary work. Goethe's Faust. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe used the dialectical method in his famous Faust. The dialectical process in this tragedy can be seen as the key basis of the plot. The dialectical process in this tragedy can be seen as the key basis of the plot, where the struggle of the opposites and the resolution serve not only as an engine of action, but also as a metaphor for the spiritual and intellectual development of the protagonist. But also as a metaphor for the spiritual and intellectual development of the protagonist. 1. Thesis. Faust in the pursuit of knowledge. Dr. Faust, the main character of the work, is the embodiment of the thesis. The human desire for absolute knowledge and the search for higher truths. He is a scholar who has mastered many disciplines: science, medicine, philosophy, and theology. But despite his breadth, but despite the breadth of his knowledge, Faust experiences deep frustration and inner emptiness. His quest for understanding goes beyond what is acceptable to the human mind. And this unsatisfied desire pushes him further to search for what is inaccessible through ordinary experience and logic. Faust symbolizes mankind's thirst to comprehend the truth, which is beyond which is beyond the limits of conventional understanding. Understanding the human desire to overcome the boundaries of what the possible, the human desire to overcome the boundaries of the possible and get to the meanings hidden behind the veil and get to the meanings hidden behind the veil of reality, of reality, of reality. Goethe, through Faust, reveals the unquenchable human nature, which always strives for more, to reach new heights, to understand the unknowable, to understand the unknowable. Faust shows man's eternal struggle with his own limits and his desire for higher knowledge, despite the realization of the limitations of the human mind. Faust becomes a symbol not only of a scientist, but of every human being, who seeks to transcend his time and his understanding to find answers to the fundamental questions of existence. To find answers to the fundamental questions of existence. 2. Antithesis. Mephistopheles and temptation. Mephistopheles and temptation. On the opposite side of Faust stands Mephistopheles. Mephistopheles, who embodies the antithesis. It is not just an antagonist. It is not just an antagonist. It is not just an antagonist. It is the embodiment of cynicism, doubt, and temptation. Mephistopheles is the voice of skepticism that destroys all lofty aspirations, offering his own radically different point of view on the world. He represents the material side of existence, where there is no place for great ideals, philosophical quests, and the pursuit of truth. For him, life is a game where pleasure and enjoyment are more important than meaning. Where pleasure and enjoyment are more important than meaning. Mephistopheles does not simply oppose Faust's aspiration. Mephistopheles does not simply oppose Faust's aspiration for knowledge and comprehension, of higher truths. He actively proposes an alternative. To abandon the quest, not to strive for the impossible, but instead to immerse himself in the world of sensual pleasures. In the world of sensual pleasures and material goods. His task His task is to prove to Faust that his dreams of greater things. His task is to prove to Faust that his dreams of greater things are meaningless. He argues that human aspirations are futile, that all this pursuit of meaning is just an illusion, and that real life is about satisfying earthly desires. And that real life is about satisfying earthly desires. The dialogue between Faust and Mephistopheles becomes a tense struggle of opposites. Mephistopheles is cunningly and cleverly manipulative, seeking to distract Faust from his spiritual quest. And draw him into the world of carnal pleasures. Here, Goethe shows the eternal conflict. Man's desire for the highest is confronted with material reality, where simpler and more accessible pleasures reign. This antithesis culminates in the bargain between Faust and Mephistopheles. Faust, frustrated in his quest and wanting to experience all the joys and possibilities of life, makes a pact with the devil. He sells his soul in exchange for receiving all that this world has to offer. For Mephistopheles, this bargain is a confirmation of his theory that in the end, every man will lean toward material things, toward momentary pleasures, rather than lean toward an endless and arduous search for truth. The bargain made between them becomes not only a basis of antithesis, but also demonstrates a profound philosophical clash. Which is more important? Higher ideals or earthly pleasures? Which is more important? Higher ideals or earthly pleasures? Mephistopheles assures that man's ultimate goal is not truth, but getting the most out of life. And Faust has a long way to go to realize how true this is. I gotta take a breather. My throat itches. Oh, my throat itches. This place is like, I'm allergic to this place. I'm allergic to Missouri. Oh, man. That's 4:06. Okay, let's see. Where are we? We're on synthesis. We got one. Dude, we got nothing left. We really have nothing left, so We'll just go ahead and quickly do this. We've been going live for about an hour here, which is pretty good. We're almost to the end of chapter 1, so that's pretty good. How's your throat hurting? It is hurting. It's like it's slightly hurting because of the performance, but I won't say it's too much because of the performance. I want to say mostly it's because of the allergies that I experience here in Missouri. Like, it's springtime, so there's a lot of pollen in the air, and I just have like the itchiest. I'm really allergic to like the pollen in the air. So, my body is kind of made for like don't drink cold water. All right. Okay, I'll take you up on that. I'll take you up on that. Thank you. I'm just like I'm so itchy. I'm so itchy. And my body is built for the Southwest. Like Arizona, San Diego, Los Angeles. Like my body's tuned to be there. I notice that when I'm there, I perform a lot better. I speak a lot better. I'm much more clear. I'm less nasally. I'm everything that I feel like I could be as a human being if I didn't have a constant barrage of like itchiness and like nasal leakage. Like, it's so bad. It's so bad. Add a spoon of honey and warm water, glass of milk. Hey, absolutely. I might have to do that. I do have some honey in my fridge, I believe. I do believe I have some honey in the fridge. I've got the Manuka honey, the tea tree oil honey. So, big fan of that stuff. All right. We're almost there. We're almost there. We're almost there for this. It's getting really late for you, Misha. It's getting really late. 1:44. It's probably 2 in the morning now. I can't really speak to that. I was up to like 4 in the morning last night. So I can't really judge, but man. Not good to stay up too late on a Sunday. Not on a Sunday. I'll do it on a Saturday, but tonight I am definitely gonna go to bed early tonight. And by early, I mean I'll be out of filming by about like 10, so I'll probably get home by like 11. Probably go to bed at 11, but you know how it goes. Get well soon. Thank you so much, Misha. I appreciate you. Thank you. Three. Synthesis, new understanding, and spiritual transformation. However, the interaction between Faust and Mephistopheles throughout the play leads not only to destruction, but also to a profound spiritual transformation of the protagonist. This dialectical process is not reduced to a simple struggle between good and evil, knowledge and sensuality. It leads to synthesis, a new understanding of life and human existence. Faust, having gone through a series of sufferings, temptations, and the realization of his mistakes, reaches a new level of understanding. His initial desire for knowledge, His initial desire for knowledge, which he wanted to acquire for his own sake, which he wanted to acquire for its own sake, proves to be illusory, as do the material pleasures offered by Mephistopheles, as do the material pleasures offered by Mephistopheles. At the end of his journey, Faust realizes that truth and happiness do not lie in superficial pleasures or in the pursuit of abstract wisdom. True perfection is hidden in spiritual development and service to others. The contradictions that accompany him along the way between his high ideals and the cynicism of Mephistopheles do not destroy him, but lead him to realize the importance of harmony between the spiritual and the material. Faust realizes that man cannot exist only in the world of abstract ideas or exclusively in the material world. The true fullness of life lies in finding a balance between these two worlds. The true fullness of life lies in finding a balance between these two worlds. This spiritual journey culminates in a moment of synthesis. Faust reaches the point where his quest for higher knowledge is combined with an understanding of the importance of human experience, action, and service to society. His death symbolizes spiritual rebirth. Rather than the end. Despite his pact with Mephistopheles, Faust is saved because his search for truth and his struggle with his own weakness have led him to a higher form of existence, to the realization of higher spiritual values. The final synthesis in Goethe's Faust not only completes the dialectical process, but also serves as a symbol of the fact that man's path to the truth is invariably full of contradictions, falls, and temptations. But even in this complex process, spiritual growth is possible. And it leads to salvation if man does not stop striving for the highest. The dialectical method in Goethe's Faust is manifested The dialectical method in Goethe's Faust is manifested through the clash of opposing forces. Is manifested through the clash of opposing forces. Of opposing forces. The desire for knowledge in skepticism. The desire for knowledge in skepticism, spiritual ideas, in material temptations. This conflict not only sets the movement of the plot, but also reveals the inner struggle of the protagonist, where each contradiction leads him to new understanding. Faust strives for greater knowledge and understanding, but temptations constantly arise on his path, reflecting the limitations of human experience and its dependence on material things. This confrontation becomes the nucleus through which Faust gradually moves from delusion and error to a new level of realization. The dialectic here works through a process in which contradictions do not destroy one another, but lead to the development of the hero. Goethe shows that truth is not given to man at once. It rises through constant overcoming, through struggle and inner conflict. In this struggle, Faust discovers deeper meanings of existence. Thus, the dialectical method becomes the basis for the hero's spiritual evolution, where each new level of understanding is born out of the tension between opposites. Goethe's Faust is a work in which dialectic not only structures the plot, but also becomes an important philosophical tool. Goethe points out that truth is not the end point of the journey, but is constantly renewed through movement and resolution of the contradictions. All right, let's go ahead and save that. All right, so let's go ahead and save it. We're going to duplicate the channel, make that part 2, chapter 2. Bring it back to the beginning. File, save, and then we'll kick it off with chapter 2 next time. And we are 1/10 of the way through the book. So we just do what we did, and then we do that 10 more times, and then we're good with one part of it. Let's see, chapter 6. Instead of conclusion. Yeah, this is cool. All right. Sweet. Well, we got enough to distill down and send over, so that'll be nice. Long way to go? Yeah, it is definitely a long way to go. You're telling me. Yep. We're going to go on to here. And stop sharing from this page. Just go to FaceTime and there we go. Take off that script and bring it back. Bring it back. All right. Well, we're at 420, guys. We're at 420. Misha, thank you for watching this whole process take place. We got quite a bit to go here. But you know, it's good to take one step in the right direction, and we've made a step in this direction of creating this book. Although we have quite a bit to go, I think that through a couple different weekends and maybe even weekdays after work, if we focus on this after work, this is definitely something that we can get through in the coming weeks. I'll have to also edit down the libertarian book, the libertarian philosophical. No, I can't even keep it straight in my head anymore. But yes, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you. Let's see, what did I miss on the chat? Suhoor. Pre-dawn meal. Okay. Suhoor is, I'm going to cook something for suhoor for the pre-dawn meal. Okay. Well, I love that. Well, hopefully you have something good to cook up for suhoor. I hope that it's something delicious, and good luck with the remaining days. Last time we spoke, it was 8 days. I think that was 1 day ago. So I think there's 7 more days is what you were saying. So good luck with the 7 more days. You know, and I think that you definitely got this with all of the fasting, and is a tremendous amount of fasting, but you got this, and really, really cool that you're doing it. So thanks a lot. Absolutely. And enjoy your suhoor. Enjoy your pre-dawn meal. That sounds delightful, and I might even get something myself, but I feel like if I eat any more, I might just pass out. So good to see you, Misha. I think I'm on your sleep schedule right now because I'm about to pass out myself. So hopefully you have a good dawn. I will enjoy the rest of my evening, absolutely. And I'm gonna enjoy being a background character in a bar scene. That should be a lot of fun. So I'll report back and I'll tell you what's good and what happened tomorrow. I think tomorrow after work I'll go live again. So I'll definitely be back on there. So can't wait to come back on, and I'd love to hear all about what's going on in your world. So love to hear it. Thanks for tuning in, and it's good to see you. It's good to talk.